So welcome to perhaps our last episode for 2025.
Yep.
And Lyra, we want to kind of continue the theme, right? I mean, I just kind of look back at all the episodes we've been doing. So at the beginning of the year, we did a lot of Trump episode, right? Because we're eager to see how the first year is doing. And, we always look at a different kind of model. And then, of course, towards the end, lately, with Sabah election, we kind of talk about PMS every now and then, right? And how, he did some things well, he did certain things not so well. And interestingly, I was just watching a little bit of Keluar Sekejap the other day, and I think it was Shahril who was like, KJ always will try to kind of like be the batu api, just say, Shahril will tell us, if, what should PMS be doing, And Shahril is just like, look, PMS did some good things, but it's almost like every other day he has to go and kutok people. It's like there's a high level of self-righteousness out there, either is Mahakaya or whatever, So I guess he's not wrong, right? But towards the end of the year, we kind of are like, the Madani government, maybe not so much Madani, it's more like the Pakatan Harapan is in a very difficult situation, and if they don't shift in 2 years' time, some people say it might be game over, right?
Yep.
So that's why we kind of want to talk about together. And would you agree that, I mean, of course, remember even the days before they become Pakatan Harapan, they were called Pakatan Rakyat, right? And they used to have this whole manifesto in the Buku Jingga, the Orange Book. And look at how far we are away from there. Do you feel like there is an issue of consensus? Like in Malaysia, we don't really have a consensus what kind of country we want to be?
Yeah, I do think so. I think it's kind of interesting that we are like doing a whole review of like whole 1 year, what has happened. And you really can see that actually there is two sides of the camp. I mean, even if you have conservative values or even progressive values, still people are a bit divided as to how Malaysia project should be like. As in, some people will support a certain agenda and another people group may support like a different agenda. It's like generally, like as Malaysians, we don't necessarily have something like American first sort of agenda at the core value of this nation. So I just felt like that part we are still very much divided, and actually we could use some unity in this area.
So do you feel like it's because we are still stuck in the old paradigm? When I talk about old paradigm, we're talking about, since May 13, we kind of talking about, we need a rebalancing in society. But this talk began way back before 69. It's like even the Reid Commission was talking about that. So remember, with Tunku, with UMNO, MCA, MIC, and they were just kept on and on. And Lord Reid was like, no, it's like in 10 years' time, it has to be fair and things like that. So the whole, so British basically was like, look, you cannot continue to have this kind of affirmative action forever. But it's very ironic, right, that the whole Europe have kind of went into that way. America had gone that way, which Trump was trying to reverse now. Look at all the things he was doing with university. So that's one of the core social issue, right? And people. So do you feel like maybe for a long time, because of course during Mahathir's time, he was really ruling with iron fist, and there was a lot of fear. Remember with ISA. Operasi Lalan and all those kind of things. So people don't really want to talk about, why are we still doing affirmative action when almost everyone agree. In fact, when we study NEP very carefully, even Raza, even all those who are strong proponents, they all agree that there is a time frame. It's not perpetual. It's not forever. And yet it is very difficult to even talk about this today openly. But would you agree maybe the newer generation, because of the harshness of the economic reality, they are more prepared to say, look, we talk about the Z generation, they are they are not so fortunate as the other generation in terms of opportunity and things like that. So maybe they are more ready to kind of talk about it and blow things up.
Yeah, I think sometimes it's kind of sad. I think in society, you do need like quite a fair bit of hardship to actually make people realize that, hey, actually we are kind of being oppressed here. And it's like, it's almost like you are very much friendly with the oppressor until you realize one day that, hey, actually it's harming me. Then only then your like security level is gonna like bump out. Otherwise, I guess like people generally don't feel the heat until it is right, literally like right in front of your house. So I do agree. I think there is a rising awareness in terms of how people are, perhaps due to the hardship, I mean, especially economic hardship, and people will begin to wake up to a certain reality. But then again, you also have people, because of the hardship, and they felt like I'm even more entitled to a certain benefit. And it's like, I demand a certain right. But I was just recently watching one video. I think this Muslim immigrant from some country basically was being housed in a temporary shelter in the United Kingdom.
Oh yeah, I saw in like a container one. The
Yeah.
lady was talking,
And it's
right?
like you're staying free, rent free, and everything. And she's like, "This is for no man to live. Like it's for animal." And I felt like, hey, that's such tremendous amount of ingratitude that she demonstrated. I mean, obviously, I don't agree. I mean, with the living condition and things like that. But you're here, and you know that you're here to basically take advantage of the welfare of the nation. And why are you complaining? I mean, the Brits are like working there, like literally have to work to pay all these taxes and just for you to come here. And so I just felt like there is also that group of people that we have to be a bit more careful. I mean, even if you're not immigrants, you are Malaysians, you could also fall into the same category, because like we are all undergoing the same level of like education and like peer pressure and things like that. You will just tend to be more influenced.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that it's a bit concerning, because when people start to have that, like what you say, entitlement kind of mindset, then that goes to socialism, that goes to communism. And that's one of the reasons why Mamdani won in New York, because the young people there have no opportunity, they can't afford mortgage and things like that. So we do have this kind of danger here. And that's why every time you look at the so-called progressive, right, those people who are saying that we are for the advancement of civilization, don't you think that it is just socialism and communism packed under different kind of, I mean, don't need to name names. You look at certain parties, certain NGO, and what they want is really a redistribution of wealth. But of course, you can't just say you want to take something from someone and give it to another person. That's just like another cultural revolution. Like in France those days, or in China, or in Pol Pot in Cambodia, it doesn't end well at all. So I guess Malaysia, we are lucky. Talk about, some people kind of make the observation that when things are going well, when economy is going well, people kind of neglect all the fundamental. Like in the late 80s and 90s, Malaysia was growing well, economy was doing well, so people kind of allowed Mahathir to do whatever he wants.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we are. I mean, I often think that it is actually very ridiculous. I mean, even Malaysians, after we have gone through such a whole lot of effort to just even have a shot at reformation, and people are like they are longing for those Najib days, like good old Najib days. I felt like that's like a big no for me. It's almost like a no-brainer, as in, why do you long for a corrupted life? I mean, how are you then different from saying that Sabahan and Sarawakians are still having that sort of corrupted mindset, because you're like, hey, you're supporting a pro-corruption state government, and so I guess you're no different from us. I mean, if you want to like argue along that line, it's kind of interesting. I mean, because in the States, I mean, it's a bit unrelated in that sense. With the Rob Reiner's death, and Trump basically just said he he's a bad person,
Yeah.
and it's like, sorry about this person, but he's a bad person, and he was basically killed by those who had like Trump derangement syndrome people, and I think he's not wrong, but it's not easy to hear such like truth that is being put forth like very, very bluntly. So I guess like a lot of people would have like quote unquote like self justice, a sense of justice that, yeah, I mean, even though there's a bad person, you shouldn't say that he's a bad person, especially when some people are mourning for his death and things like that.
Yeah, it's very, very interesting he said that, and he kind of doubled down on that. And that shows the kind of person Trump is. He is a realist, he is a very practical person. He is looking at results and not just the process. And so it's very interesting after Sabah election, remember all the analysis. Remember I was just showing you one of the comment made by Larry Sun, right? And of course, Larry Sun, people don't take him seriously because they perceive him as a fraud. But he said something which is very interesting because, I mean, in terms of Sabah election, for DAP especially, they needed a response. They lost all the contests. And he made this comment. He said, in order for DAP to convince PMX, they need to act irrationally, just like Trump. And he added, this is, I quote Larry Sun, there is wisdom in irrationality and it gets things done. Making too careful, calculated moves will get them nowhere. So I guess, even if you disagree with the way Trump behaves, I think nobody can disagree that DAP is kind of too cautious, too orthodox. You know how I love to watch all those Chinese wuxia stuff, and you have different schools of fighting, and some are the orthodox, and when they met someone who is unconventional and very cunning, and they just cannot. And that's what I kind of feel with DAP, that they are just too square, and they just keep on saying, oh no, we will go back and reflect, and it's like, tell us something new, please. And how are you going to reflect? Then, of course, in the last episode, we kind of talk about the Singh brothers and a few people kind of course, they do what they know, but it's like, how do you persuade PMX? And of course, some of the things with the cabinet reshuffling and things like that, it shows that they're trying to mix the game up. Like how we say, when if you play a football game and you are behind 1-0 and things like that, and it's like 70 minutes, 80 minutes, and the coach still don't do anything. Then the fan will want to start to throw bottle. And I mean, you have to do something. Even if you try and you fail, it's better than you don't try.
Exactly.
And that seems like the problem with DAP. But of course, PMX looks like he is trying to shake things up.
Yeah, I guess like DAP has the sort of mentality that they are afraid of failures, I guess. I mean,
too cautious, or is it just
I
conservative?
feel like it's like overly cautious for their own good.
It's like a Confucian kind of.
Yeah,
behavior.
I actually felt like it's like too safe. Like you're kind of like just, okay, let's play within the sandbox, but one day you're gonna have to move the sandbox into a reality. I guess they just need to like try things out, mess things up a little bit, and just be a bit unconventional. And really, I guess you need to, now that you have leverage, you should put.
No, you have 46, right?
You should put a certain amount of pressure on PMX, because I mean, we are in this like in a coalition, so people need to like begin to talk and place certain demands.
Well, my friend from Sabah, and of course he didn't go back and vote this time, but he said his parents say it looks like DAP is more suited to be opposition. But anyway, but since we talk about this, I thought it's a good time for us to look at. I mean, in fact, I mean we're still kind of like introduction about this episode, but I was just looking at one article, opinion piece by Professor Tajuddin Rosdi in FMT. And it's called "Get Ready for an Umno-PAS-GPS-GRS Government," and kind of like a bit doom and gloom kind of opinion, and just say I think kind of try to spur Pakatan Harapan voter and say don't abandon ship, otherwise you get this. But a lot of people kind of accuse him of sowing fear, and in fact a lot of disillusioned people and people who are kind of like saying, we might not vote. In fact, these are the core Pakatan Harapan supporter, and And in fact, one person say, this kind of government, we already seen that. That's Muhyiddin Perikatan Nasional, that's Sabri Perikatan Nasional, UMNO and PAS have been together. But of course, if UMNO doesn't have that many federal seats, they might be absorbed by other political parties. So anyway, it kind of make me think, right? Because I mean, every time people say to me they are afraid PAS will become prime minister, I always say it cannot happen except if Sabah and Sarawak support them, which will be this kind of case, which has happened before during COVID time. So it kind of make me think, and and so this is the one point I want to talk about today, which is decentralization. And we are both from Sarawak, and we one of our issue, right? I mean, maybe it's more of mine, in terms of the pro-independence gang is they seem to be like, look, we just want to make sure the welfare of Sarawak is taken care of. We don't really care what happened in Malaya. Of course, you and I, we stay here, okay? So that's point number one. But it's kind of, but just reading this Professor Rosdi article kind of made me think like the parallel comparison in US, right? So, like Oregon, like California, New York, you want open borders, so be it. You want homeless people, so be it. You want murders on the street, so be it. We can go to Texas, we can go to Florida, we can go to Iowa. So it's like every state do their own thing. So it kind of made me think that this decentralization may not necessarily be a bad thing.
Yeah, actually, I mean, it's interesting that you kind of compare it with all these states in the US, and I actually don't think it's like necessarily a bad thing, like what you say, because I mean, because having lived here for so long, like half my life is here, and the same amount as that I've spent in Sarawak, and you begin to think like, hey, actually, yes, I mean, I do have a great amount of interest in Sarawak like welfare, but also a tremendous amount of interest in where I'm staying now in Kuala Lumpur and in Selangor as general. So I just felt like it's not right and wrong. I guess it's like where you're placed at a certain season and your interests, obviously that there will be a certain amount of emphasis that you'll place in. And I mean, obviously if you're in Sarawak and you do want the best for your state. I mean, if you're staying here, I also want the best for Selangor and for KL. So I don't think it's necessarily like a bad thing, but obviously it's a collective decision that we have to make for better or for worse. I mean, if you vote for like a super ultra religious party, then you have to bear with the consequences of like having a lot of religiosity that are being placed in our day-to-day policies as compared to maybe certain states that are more of capitalism and things like that. So I felt like it's not necessarily a bad thing, as in like you vote for the kind of government that you want. So you kind of like test it out in that sense. I mean, you get 5 years to test it out, and if you don't like it, then change.
Oh, what do you think of this statement? They say like, just take PAS for example. Of course, when they campaign, they are very theocratic and things like that. But when they are in federal government, then all those tendencies kind of disappear. Some people say, of course, if you have a government that includes GRS and GPS, I think you have to compromise. There's no way they will allow certain things to happen. But we all know, for example, religion is under state purview. So there will be one area where it's very easy to say, well, you do whatever you want, just don't disturb us. But when we look at it from the federation point of view, do you think this is a dangerous thing to do? I mean, we talk about the pros and cons of decentralization, but then this is the issue that caused a lot of discomfort for a lot of, for certain race and religion group.
Yeah, I think it goes back to the separation of power between federal and states. Because, I mean, if you don't have like a very, very clear delineation between what federal government should be in charge of and what state government should be in charge of, then I think, yes, we are in danger of heading towards a theocratic, becoming more theocratic than we would like it to be. But if there is a very, very clear separation between, okay, these are under state government and these are actually under federal government, and actually you limit the federal government to like just basically like the overall national security issues, then I think we are pretty safe, as in like every state can have their own interest that is being taken care of. So it may not necessarily be like a bad thing altogether, but then again, we also know that because of a democratic nation that we are in, you also have the tendency where there's like a lot of amendments that are being made to our constitution that could literally just cause like all our rights to be given away. So I think how we vote and how do we want to like watertight certain policies, I think that is very, very important, because otherwise then you begin to have like, I mean, like certain issues like in the States where they just literally want to pack the courts. And basically it's like you could have like a whole few generations that are suffering from this sort of consequences. So I think that's something that every generation we do have to like really, really think through, because I mean the past generations, they could think that, hey, maybe affirmative actions are great. Maybe it was great. I mean, for like, because you talk about redistribution of wealth among different races and things like that. So, but there comes a time when we have to move away from this model, because I mean, times are changing. But obviously, I'm not saying that I think certain policies are made to last for generations. So I guess that's the part that we are at a very, very delicate situation where we just have to, how do we want to push? Because we also don't want to come to that place of like overly decentralized that you have a like a tyranny sort of being put in place at certain states, and you have no way of salvaging it also.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, look at what happened recently, right? Remember when the Indonesian parliament was kind of like increasing their own salary and things like that, and there was just riot and things like that. So you want to make sure that you don't do something that is like too drastic. But then, of course, people still want certain changes, certain improvement, and economic hardship is really the trigger right now. People don't really have enough and things like that. So you kind of go back to the other question, which is actually point number 3 today, but we might as well talk now, which is what kind of federation we want to be, in terms of what is the consensus. And I mean, we can talk about history, right? The Reid spent so much time talking about the consensus. I mean, he did. In fact, when you look at the whole Reid Commission, Tunku was saying that Malaysia shouldn't have independence because what's the word he used? Belum layak. And in fact, a lot of people agree because they have the example from India and things like that, which took much more time and more consensus. Then, of course, when it comes to Malaysia, it's even worse, like the Cobalt Commission literally, like there's some people in Sarawak still say that they were conned by Lee Kuan Yew, and which have a lot of factual kind of support. So I think a lot of East Malaysian at that time really have no idea why they're even joining Malaysia. So that is what it is. But we are here already. You're kind of put in some kind of mismatch. I don't know, some cookie or cake or covenant you want to call it. But then it's like we want to look to the future, not just focusing on the past. What is the right way to do it? I mean, what is the workable compromise, right? And I like what you say. Like certain things, maybe it's just meant for a generation. I can immediately think of like NEP. I mean, look at what NEP has become. It literally birthed all the GLC. And GLC literally are owned by MOF. So at the end of the day, the one having the prime ministership, having that's why another call for PMS is relinquish the finance minister post. But you can see why he doesn't want to do that, because, hey, MOF control all the GLC.
Exactly.
It's like, well, I think it's even more powerful than the cabinet.
Yeah, I think that's the thing that people don't realize, because especially when you want to have like certain affirmative actions and you have like a lot of Bumi Putras that are being put in position, and I'm not saying that they don't make good leadership and things like that, but it's like if you're just after a certain race and you just take care of that interest, you get too imbalanced that you begin to just tilt one way, and people don't begin to realize that actually even more corruption happens in GLC.
Yeah.
I mean, you talk about state level. I mean, these are like those that are obvious to the eyes, but those that are like under the radar, I think that are the ones of like millions, billions that are being siphoned away that we should be scared of. I mean, it's just that I think people don't comprehend because you're like, oh, okay, we have this GLC there. It's like, okay, we know that, okay, in order to get government projects, you have to be somewhat registered as a Bumi Putra company. So I just felt like people are perhaps ignorant to the schemes of all this GLC, and they actually don't know that, hey, actually MOF holds such a tremendous amount of power
Yep.
to all these things, and it's like it's access, it's power. So I mean, if you think about that, it's like honestly it's not easy because like what you say, the NEP literally like birthed forth all this GLC, and it's really, really not helpful for the nation to grow to the next level.
And with the GLC structure, we are basically a nationalized economy. So that's why you see some people, I mean not all, there are some people who never touch Malaysian stock market because they say it's all played by GLC. And all these are also affecting our competitiveness around the world. I mean, in the day and age where, I mean, you look at all around the world, there's massive changes, with AI and the distrust on central government is getting worse and worse. I mean, EU is crumbling and things like that. So you have people wanting change, and here we're still debating, whether UEC should be. I mean, this is just like UEC. I felt like it's a good case. I mean, not say case. It's a good single issue to kind of reflect where people are standing. It's like, why are people so triggered, right? And it's the same way. It's why are people triggered with Hanayo being appointed as Federal Territory Minister? And it's all the perception of, I need to protect my race, I need to protect my religion. And in fact, Federal Territory, the whole thing, the whole disbandment of local election comes from there, comes from May 13 and things like that. So there's a whole perceived, but the whole narrative about needing to protect the Malay right, I just felt it's so ridiculous because you look at all the positions in the country that Malay and Bumi Putra are so well protected at all level. You even have 2 Malay deputy prime minister now. So, but of course we know this, and I believe a lot of people know this. But then my question is, why are people still accepting this kind of narrative? Or maybe they are not, or maybe just people don't want to talk about it because I saw somebody was saying that because of the sensitivity, because of what happened with Mahathir time, people kind of adopt self-censorship.
Yeah, I think so. I think people are like so overly conscious, like you can't call, like it's like the pot can't call a kettle black sort of mentality. And
What do you think about your generation? I mean, my generation definitely, I feel like there's that kind of status quo fear. Unless you are somebody like, like I study law and things like that. Like lawyers usually get into this kind of discussion. They're not so worried. But most people will be like, just hear no evil, see no evil, that kind of thing. But what about your generation, the millennial? Do you think they are more, more like, okay, let's talk about this, or they're also like, okay, let's just let status quo rule?
Well, I think it's not so much of like let status quo rule. I guess it's more like a sense of helplessness, and that they just felt like, okay, I mean, I couldn't care less sort of mentality that unfortunately has seeped in because of the comfort that we have had, and it's like, why rock the boat? Because it's like, it's not like we can do much things, and it's not like we can actually like really make an effect at the top of the mountain. So I felt like there is a lot of that sort of wrong mentality that has been that has infiltrated our mind, unfortunately. I mean, it's kind of like a mind virus where it's like if you're constantly being put in a very, very safe zone, very comfortable, and you're never allowed to just like I say maybe this is like I mean like an example is like you can't play with fire. So I guess it's like we become too careful. It's like the whole generation becomes too careful and it's like let's not go there. And I mean it's almost like one maybe the previous generation is like disinterested, then this generation is like even more disinterested, and you need to get like a few generations that are like superly unrelatable to an extent that suddenly boom like a certain event just caused the whole generation to like rise up. So but I hope that we are not like heading there, because I do feel like there is a lot of awareness that is coming from like all worldwide sort of movement that actually people are beginning to speak out, because you don't want to just let like a certain momentum die. And I think now it's a good time because you begin to see, hey, there's a lot of pushback on certain things that are actually not good for you. And actually people begin to realize that, hey, my voice actually matters, and every single voice matters. So when we begin to embrace our own voice again, I think that's where people begin to like, hey, actually we can make a bit of changes. I mean, even if we just make the gong sound louder, I think it's also something, because the government is also, you see so many U-turns just because people are like unhappy. They voice out a bit of a sense of unhappiness, then you see a lot of U-turns on the policies.
Yeah, it's very interesting you say that, and I totally agree with you that even though people might feel like not much change, but still, I mean, just look at the Sabah election, the reactions, and I mean, you want to call the reactiveness of PMS or whatever. It doesn't matter what term you use, but he is responding. Whether it's right or wrong, time will tell. And it is, I mean, it's like if people don't want to talk about it, eventually there will be some sort of systemic failure. There will be some sort of economic failure. There will be some sort of societal failure. Like recently we saw in education, we saw, parents just not able to control or manage their kids and things like that. So we at education level, I mean, they don't even get started on the education area. So there are many things that if people don't speak out and don't demand for change, and that's why you look at, I mean, especially after COVID, I think you can see the worldwide populist movement is taking rise. But of course, populist doesn't mean it is what you think it will be. I mean, look at Malaysia. Remember we did many seasons ago. We talk about Undi 18, and Undi 18 has from the political point of view, has a very different, unexpected kind of result. And I think that's the thing, right? When you're young, when you're idealistic, maybe you tend to prefer certain ideology, but then you get married, you have kids, you're trying to buy a house. Then you start to realize, hey, life is hard, and I prefer my government to be focusing on how to give me opportunities so that I can pursue happiness the way I want. So these are the kind of life stages that I feel like people can be involved, and we have to continue to encourage people. And I feel like there is a change, but what kind of consensus we are reaching, maybe will still take some time to even reach. I mean, of course, in the United States, they say you win when you can get 80%. But I think 80% is a bit ask, right? I mean, Malaysia, I mean, well, I think if you get 70% agree on issue in Malaysia, that's considered a good thing.
Exactly.
And I'm quite sure 70% can agree on some basic kind of things that everyone can agree. And that nobody needs to dominate each other, and people have, I mean, I'm okay for equal opportunity. I mean, of course, if you are really an economic libertarian, you'll be like, you don't even agree with equal opportunity. But equal opportunity, I think, it is a reasonable starting point in Malaysia.
But I guess that's the part that we need to have a bit more clarity in terms of like equal opportunity, because
how do you define that, right?
yeah, I guess it's like we have a different
like recently Sarawak government just say everyone every Sarawakian will get tertiary education free, regardless, no quota, no nothing. Then of course, I mean, we will wait to see how. I imagine there will be some kind of restriction in terms of what course you can do. So just because you have a seat, I mean, let's say I give you, I don't know, psychology. I don't know if you want to do that kind of course or not.
Gender studies.
Yeah, gender studies, for example. And but still, it's the first of its kind in the country. And rumors say that Sabah wants to do it. And interestingly, Selangor, Penang, Sabah, Sarawak are the only 4 states who recognize UEC. So I don't know. I just feel like that kind of let's defend race. Let's use the race and religion. It is going to lose the effectiveness sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I think it's just like you look at BLM movement and how it is being weaponized by Antifa. And I think people can begin to like wake up to this sort of.
But after 4 or 5 years of suffering.
Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate after
And
a
Malaysia
while.
had to suffer for what, 40 years of NEP.
we have suffered long enough. So I guess there is an opportunity that people begin to realize that, hey, if you're like overly one-sided, you don't get, it's like, aren't every lives matter? So I guess when people come to that, you kind of have to have the pendulum swing left and right until it comes to a balance.
Yeah.
So I guess we are also at that phase where it's like swinging left and right until we begin to find a balance for that everyone will be sort of happy with, and with just a small amount of compromise, then I guess all of us can move on.
Yeah, I guess at the end, people doesn't want to be dominated. People want a certain kind of freedom. Yes, I mean, to ask for small government in Malaysia, it is maybe like
Big ask.
a big ask for now, because people are so used to. I mean, talk about big government. I mean, recently, I mean, it's a bit off topic, but it's kind of related. You know, like you know that there's the Bondi Beach shooting, which is very, very unfortunate and sad. And so of course, Australia, of course, has one of the strictest gun control in the whole world. And somebody actually make a remark, and this person say, look, there's no, it's not about gun control. He said, because he said, look, if it is about gun control, then you would say nobody can use a gun. But places like Australia, places like all the Democrat states that is gun-free zone, it's not gun control, because they still allowed the police, the government to use gun. It's like all the celebrity who are for open borders, they hire security guard with guns.
Exactly.
So you are not against gun. You are just against gun or being liberalized. But you don't mind guns being centralized for certain people. So that's really the big difference between big and small government. But of course, it's a historically, culturally, we are a nation that kind of like to be told what to do in a way. But then people go to coffee shop and complain, we don't like this government and things like that. But do you agree? Generally, we are so used to big government.
Yeah, I mean, even just basic things that we just like to be told what to do, and I guess
and
it's
Singapore
like,
probably worse than us. But anyway,
yeah, but I guess people are like we do need like a lot of education, and I guess like civic education, or even how to live life. I guess like those sort of things. We do need a bit more. I guess like there has to have some sort of move away from totally being told to like a place of like just experimenting, and then we begin to like see, oh, okay, this works well for me and things like that. So yeah, I mean, I do think people do need to like move away from that, because otherwise then, I mean, how different are we from Australia? That is gonna be, I mean, that's called a nanny state.
so what happened like with the nationalistic movement in Sabah, Sarawak? So in a way, I feel like it is a good thing, because it forces people to start to think for themselves. Yes, maybe the result is not what we want, but I really believe at the end of the day, there will be enough people from the Borneo side to really say, look, we are not just caring about us, we are also very concerned about what happened in Semenanjung, because we are still a federation. So yeah, I mean, take care of our own lot, but at the same time, we are still in it together. Otherwise, why don't we be separate nation?
Exactly.
So as long as we're still one country, I think it's a good balance. So from that point of view, I think that the state nationalism movement is good, and hopefully they will lead to demand for local election. Because local election, I mean, if you have local election, then all the things about the sign, about like what language to use, all the hoo-ha with KKMI, those will be local government issue already, and
Yep.
you don't need the religious affair to come in and things like that. So there will be something that we can aim for, right? Because I mean, when people have more rights and more self-determination, I think it's always a good thing. But people have to be taught why it's good, and that's why I think, even though we talk about self-censorship, we talk about hope defer, we talk about all the different issues for your generation, for my generation, but I think we shouldn't give up. We should continue to keep talking, and even though there are not many people who are thinking, but eventually I think we'll reach a tipping point.
Exactly.
So that, I mean, look at 2008, right? I mean, like what happened West Malaysia, a sudden rebuttal of Barisan Nasional, just like that. It is like no warning. So I mean, of course, it's not just political solution, but at the societal level and things like that. And you have to kind of agree that some of the things that GPS is doing is good, right? I mean, make English official language, free tertiary. I mean, they have a lot of issue, but some of the things they did really will help the rest of the country, I guess.
Agree.
Anyway, I think we kind of want to do a review, but in the end, we still talk about self-determination and things like that. So, is there anything let's end with this. What do you really hope to see in 2026?
Yeah, I mean, I do hope that actually we do have like more consensus concerning how a nation should be like. I mean, because what we are very, very concerned about is really the nation building. So I think at the end of the day, it's like what contributes to the nation building and things like that. So that is the part that people do need to begin to think about. I mean, if we can't even begin to have like critical thinking, how are we going to move towards like having local election? Because then you'll be like thinking, hi, that's like too much responsibility on my part.
Yep.
So I do think there is like a lot of that shifting in our mindset that needs to happen. And I do think that will probably be like the focus for 2026. I mean, you also have like midterms in US coming out and things like that. I think people can begin to tell that, hey, actually there are certain ways that are more effective. I think when people see more examples of that rising up in different nations, and we can begin to kind of like compare, especially we're talking about US so much because it's kind of like a parallel to us in the sense that both are rainbow nations and both have like a lot of different races living together, and yet how do you have that sort of harmony and that sort of unity like never before? And I mean, every nation is like, well, I guess like Malaysia is like maturing, so I do feel like there is still, well, I mean, a sizable amount of opportunity for PMX to still steer the course.
2 more years, and I think here's an opportunity. I do really think so. And some of the things he did is not too bad. But I think this is the final lap for him already in terms of proving what you say you will do. And but it's not going to be easy because all the label, the personal emotion and things like that he has to overcome. And as for me, I think I totally agree with you that there will be more consensus. In fact, I do believe we have. Every time we talk about consensus, it's like, look, let's just focus on what we can agree first. The one that you cannot agree, we can put on one side. So even certain things like UEC, are there really so many objector? I really doubt so. I really feel like it's like a weaponization game by some people who wants to continue the flaming of race and religion. I mean, that's why a lot of people kind of made the 2 points. One is, you have the whole matriculation university program for Bumiputra, UITM, and all their subjects are in English. And the other thing, then they say, UEC is a threat to national language. And one statistic shows that the students from UEC actually the average SPM-BM score is better than Kebangsaan. Actually, a lot of people in Kebangsaan fail BM. I mean, there are so many people who study 10 years of BM and they fail SPM-BM.
Wow.
So it's not really about national language at all, but it is about that siege mentality. And unfortunately, I feel like because PMS came from UMNO, Barisan National, there's a vestige of siege mentality, and every now and then he will appeal to that. Do you feel that every now and then he is trying to like say that somebody is against me and therefore I need to behave like this?
Maybe there's a sense of like, I guess like self-defense, like you.
Yeah, I feel like it's a reaction because that is Barisan National culture. But then he himself has been a victim for a long time, political victim. So probably those, I mean, of course, we don't want to overanalyze his motive and things like that. But that's something that was what Shahril was saying. It's like if he would just stop, like I don't know what's the word he used. He's just saying that he is a very, he likes to go and go and correct people, like in Mandarin we say 教训, he has that kind of
disciplining.
Yeah, like a measure of self-righteousness. So that's always him, and I hope he will be able to overcome this. And I mean, some of the decision that he has made, with economic decision, even cabinet decision, I kind of felt it is good for him. Even though some people say it's a demotion for DAP and things, I don't know. I don't see that way, and maybe because SIM is no longer human resource and things like that. But
to get federal territory ministerial post, I think it's very, very different from what we usually have.
Yeah, it's a first time outside, someone from UMNO, for example, or Bersatu, those kind of people. But anyway, I think we have been saying a few times already, we should get David Tian back and just let's talk about some of the... He's thought, I'm sure he has a lot of thinking also about what's the consensus, what's nation building and things like that. But I guess we are running out of time, so I think maybe the next time we see you all will be next year.
Yeah.
So bye-bye for now.
Right, bye-bye.